Have you ever looked at someone, a masterful musician, an athlete with phenomenal achievements, a successful entrepreneur, or a top-tier programmer, and thought to yourself, wow, they're such a genius. They must have been born with more talent than the rest of us? Have you ever felt a twinge of longing, a wish that you too possess that innate gift to conquer a skill or a field you've always dreamed of? Perhaps many of us have had thoughts like these, right? We often assume there's some invisible line between ordinary people and geniuses, a line drawn by something called innate talent. But what if I told you that this line is actually much blurrier than we think? What if I told you that the path from being an ordinary person to becoming an exceptional one, a true expert, can absolutely be built through method, through the right kind of effort, and not just by the luck of being born gifted? Today, Booksmart Insights is going to delve into a very special book with you. A book I believe could completely change the way you view your own potential and the path to excellence. It's Peak: Secrets from the New Science of Expertise by Anders Ericsson, a brilliant Swedish psychologist and professor at Florida State University who dedicated his career to studying top performers, and his co-author, Robert Poole, a talented science writer. This book doesn't promise magic spells that will turn you into a genius overnight. No, it's much more realistic than that. It offers us a solid belief and, more importantly, a roadmap, a scientifically proven method so that you, me, any one of us can reach our own peak in our chosen field. Are you ready to discover the secret of how an ordinary person can train to become outstanding, a master, a truly skilled expert in a particular skill? Well then, let's embark on this exciting journey together right now. Don't forget to come with an open mind, because what you're about to hear might just challenge some of your long-held beliefs. Let's dive into our first section, a part that I think will be quite a twist for many people. We're going to challenge the long-held notion of innate genius. When you hear the word genius, what's the first image that pops into your mind? Is it Albert Einstein with his iconic hair and world-changing equations? Or Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance polymath? In the world of music, perhaps no one is unfamiliar with Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, right? A child prodigy. At just 7 years old, Mozart held major concerts that astonished the entire music world. Even more astonishingly, it's said that at the tender age of 4, Mozart could distinguish the pitch of any sound, an ability that even today is considered extremely rare, with an estimated 1 in 10,000 people possessing it. Mozart's extraordinary abilities have always been a prime example when people talk about innate talent, about those who are gifted from above. We often think, oh, people like that are just born different. They have an inherent ability that ordinary folks like us could never achieve, no matter how hard we try. But is that really the truth? Dr. Anders Ericsson, the author of Peak, spent decades intensively researching cases like Mozart's, and what he discovered will truly make us reconsider. The reason Mozart achieved such great heights, according to Ericsson, wasn't entirely because he was born a predestined genius. A critically important factor, often overlooked, was that Mozart had a father, Leopold Mozart, who was not only a very talented composer, but also a deeply dedicated teacher. Mozart's father placed great importance on his children's education. He had previously poured his efforts into nurturing Mozart's older sister, Maria Anna, who, perhaps not achieving the same success as her brother, also became a respectable pianist and harpsichordist. It was from the experience of teaching his first child that Leopold had a more refined method, a more thorough preparation when he began to cultivate his second child, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Mozart was exposed to music, taught instruments and guided in composition from a very young age, with an intensity and focus that few children ever experience. So Mozart's innate talent, viewed through Ericsson's scientific lens, was actually the result of an incredibly systematic, purposeful training and practice regimen right from his earliest years. Is this a little aha moment for you already? Or let's take another example from the world of classical music, the legendary violinist Niccolò Paganini. His name is always associated with titles like genius and magician. There's a very famous story about one of his performances where 3 strings on Paganini's violin suddenly snapped. The audience held its breath, but no, Paganini remained calm, and with the single remaining string, he completed the piece flawlessly, leaving everyone stunned and in awe. This event cemented his name in history as a legend. Sounds magical, doesn't it? As if he possessed some kind of superpower. However, the real version of the story, according to the research mentioned in Peak, isn't quite as mystical. The truth is, before this, Paganini, having fallen in love with a woman, had composed a beautiful piece specifically for her, designed to be played on just 2 strings, the G and E strings, to simulate a sweet dialogue between 2 lovers. And of course, to perform such a unique piece, he had to practice it tirelessly, completely mastering the technique of playing on those 2 strings. It was precisely because of this prior preparation, this deliberate practice, that when the incident of the 3 broken strings occurred during the performance, Paganini, with his skill and composure honed through relentless training, was still able to handle the situation and brilliantly finish his performance on just 1 string. It wasn't magic, it was the fruit of arduous practice. So why do we tend to believe these innate genius stories so readily? The author of Peak points out several reasons. Firstly, it's due to information asymmetry. We usually only see the final result, the tip of the iceberg, and not the years of dedicated practice, the sweat, tears, and failures they endured. We humans are also often more drawn to mysterious, thrilling stories than to tales of daily perseverance and effort. Additionally, propagandists, the media, sometimes for various motives, will select and highlight only the most shocking, impressive clips and details, omitting the mundane aspects of the training process. This inadvertently reinforces the idea in our minds that geniuses are born exceptional and achieve success without much effort. You see, on the surface, it might seem like the abilities of these geniuses are far beyond the reach of ordinary people like us. But in reality, when we peel back the layers of legend, we find that all of them, from Mozart and Paganini to chess grandmasters, Olympic athletes, and master artists, share one common secret to becoming extraordinarily skilled. What is that secret? It's deliberate practice. Author Anders Ericsson doesn't completely deny the role of genetic factors. Certainly, some people may have certain physical advantages or particular predispositions, but his research, presented very persuasively in Peak, has truly overturned the common notion that talent is something fixed, something bestowed. It gives us a powerful message. We are not as far removed from geniuses as we often think. If we just know how to practice correctly and engage in deliberate practice, you too have a genuine opportunity to become different and outstanding. What does this mean for you and me? It means that instead of feeling inadequate, thinking, "I'm not gifted," or "I wasn't born talented enough," we should cultivate a new belief. I can do it if I have the right method and perseverance. Therefore, the first and most important message this book wants to convey is to have faith that, with the proper training methods, we can definitely become more talented, more excellent, and far more capable than the limits we impose on ourselves. Are you feeling a little spark of hope, a bit of motivation igniting within you? So in the previous section, we somewhat debunked the concept of innate genius and discovered that the path to becoming an expert doesn't necessarily start with a gift from above. Instead, there's a golden key that anyone can hold. That key, as I mentioned, is deliberate practice. This is a core term, the heart of the book Peak, and the most significant discovery in Anders Ericsson's research career. So what exactly is deliberate practice, that it holds such immense power? How is it different from just working hard at practicing every day? Many of us probably think that if we just spend a lot of time doing something, repeating it over and over, we'll automatically get better. For example, if you want to play the guitar well, you practice for 2 hours every day. If you want to improve your writing, write a few pages every day. Is this correct? Yes, but only a very small part of it. Anders Ericsson points out that merely putting in the hours and repeating a skill out of habit often doesn't lead to significant improvement, especially once you've reached a certain threshold. Think about it. Is there any skill you've been doing for many years, like driving, typing, or even a professional task you perform daily, where your proficiency seems to have plateaued, just staying the same? That's because we often fall into the trap of automated practice, or what's sometimes called naive practice. Deliberate practice is entirely different. It's not just about being present and performing the action. It is a systematic method of training, with clear goals, and most importantly, it always requires you to stretch beyond your current comfort zone. It's not about repeating what you already do well, but about focusing on the aspects you don't, your weaknesses, and methodically finding ways to improve them. Let me offer an analogy to make it clearer. Imagine that ordinary practice is like taking a stroll in a familiar park. You walk the same paths over and over. It's comfortable and pleasant, but you don't discover anything new. Deliberate practice, on the other hand, is like being an explorer trying to conquer an unclimbed mountain. You need a map, goals, a compass, methods. You must constantly challenge your limits, face difficult and slippery sections, stepping out of your comfort zone. And you need a guide or tools to know if you're on the right track. Feedback. The core difference between those who stop at pretty good or good and those who reach the peak lies in how they practice. Exceptional individuals don't just play the piano, kick a ball, or write code. They analyze their performance. They identify their mistakes. They design specific exercises to correct those mistakes, and they repeat this process tirelessly. They are always looking for ways to push their limits a little further each day. Sounds quite intense, doesn't it? Yes, deliberate practice demands intense focus, sustained effort, and sometimes the discomfort of confronting your own shortcomings. But the reward it brings is immensely worthwhile. Breakthrough improvement, mastery of skills, and the path to realizing your own potential. In the next section, we'll dissect in more detail the components that make up a practical session of deliberate practice. What elements are absolutely necessary? How can we apply them to our own learning and training processes? Let's find out together. We've just touched upon deliberate practice, the key to unlocking the door to excellence. Now let's dig deeper into its formula. Anders Ericsson identified 4 essential conditions that a practice session must meet to be truly deliberate and maximally effective. Miss one of these, and you might just be practicing hard, but not yet practicing deliberately. So let's see what they are. First condition, have specific and well-defined goals. Sounds familiar, right? Just like in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which many of you might have read, the second habit is begin with the end in mind. It's the same with deliberate practice. Goal setting is an indispensable step, but it's not just about a general goal like I want to get better. The goals here need to be specific and measurable. Imagine you want to improve your piano skills. A general goal is I want to play the piano better. But a specific goal in deliberate practice would be, in today's practice session, I want to play passage XYZ fluently at 80 beats per minute with no more than 2 mistakes. Or if you're learning a new language, today I will learn and memorize 15 new vocabulary words related to travel and be able to form 5 complete sentences using them. The author in the book conducted a fascinating experiment on memory training. An ordinary participant initially could only remember about 7 to 8 random digits. But through deliberate practice in each session, he set a specific goal. This time, I'll try to remember 1 more digit. First 9 digits, then 10, then 11. Little by little, he broke his limits. And the final result was astounding. He could accurately recall a sequence of 82 digits. See, that's the power of setting small, specific goals and conquering them step by step. Breaking down a large goal into smaller, more manageable objectives for each practice session not only gives you a clear direction, but also makes it easier to track your progress. Each time you achieve a small goal, it serves as encouragement, a reward that gives you more energy to continue. At the same time, this process helps us to self-assess, correct, and ultimately make our own breakthroughs. Aim for the moon. If you miss, you may hit a star. As Norman Vincent Peale said, reflects that spirit. But with deliberate practice, we also need those smaller targets on the way to the moon. Second condition requires intense focus. This is an element that I believe many of us often overlook or don't execute well. In today's digital age, with countless distractions around us, phone notifications, social media, emails, maintaining absolute focus on one thing has become more challenging than ever. But for deliberate practice, focus isn't an option, it's a mandatory requirement. You can't be scrolling through Facebook while trying to solve a difficult math problem and expect to understand it deeply. You also can't be watching TV while practicing a complex piece of music and expect to play it well. When you are in a session of deliberate practice, your mind must be completely on the task at hand. You must be aware of what you are doing, why you are doing it, and what you need to achieve. As I've shared in previous videos, focus is a key element of mindfulness, helping you master your life. It's also the gateway to the flow state, a state where you are completely immersed in your work, feeling exhilarated and performing at your peak. In peak, the author emphasizes that to succeed, you must fully concentrate on one single thing in the present moment. Practicing a skill is exactly the same. If you want to improve, you have to pour all your mental energy, all your attention, into every moment of practice. Try turning off all notifications, finding a quiet space, and committing to giving your undivided attention to that practice session. You'll see the difference. Third condition must involve feedback. This is one of the most crucial elements and also one of the biggest differentiators between deliberate practice and other forms of practice. Imagine you're shooting arrows at a target you can't see. You shoot arrow after arrow, but you don't know if you're hitting the mark, if you're off to the left or right, too high or too low. Can you improve your archery skills? It would be incredibly difficult, right? Feedback is the mirror that reflects your practice process. It tells you what you're doing well, and more importantly, where you're making mistakes and what needs improvement. Without feedback, you can't identify what you need to change, nor can you gauge how far you are from your goal. You might be repeating the same mistakes without even realizing it. What's the best way to get quality feedback when learning a skill? It's to find a teacher, a coach, an experienced mentor. A teacher not only imparts knowledge and skills, but more importantly, can provide objective, accurate, and timely feedback. They can spot mistakes you wouldn't notice on your own and suggest better ways of doing things. This allows you to progress much more quickly and effectively. As Bill Gates once said, everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast, or a bridge player. But what if we don't have the resources for a dedicated teacher? Don't worry. You can still find ways to generate feedback for yourself. For example, if you're practicing public speaking, record or videotape your presentation. Then review and evaluate it yourself. If you're learning to write, ask friends or colleagues to read your work and provide input. If you're learning to code, use debugging tools and participate in forums to ask questions and learn from others. Even the outcome of your work itself is a form of feedback. If you cook a dish that no one wants to eat, that's feedback. The key is to actively seek or create feedback mechanisms and learn from them. Feedback helps you adjust your course, ensuring your efforts are heading in the right direction, not just spinning your wheels. Fourth condition, and a most fundamental truth: stepping out of the comfort zone. This is perhaps the toughest element, requiring the most willpower and discipline, but it's also the most decisive factor for your progress. If you only do things that you already find easy and familiar, you will never improve further. It's like weightlifting. If you keep lifting the same comfortable weight, your muscles won't grow. You have to gradually increase the weight and challenge your limits for your muscles to become stronger. Stepping out of your comfort zone means trying to do something you haven't done before, or doing things that you find a bit difficult, a bit challenging. Initially, these things might make you feel uncomfortable, even a little scared, making you want to avoid them. For example, if you're afraid of public speaking, stepping out of your comfort zone might be volunteering to speak up in a small meeting. If you're learning a new language, you might be trying to strike up a conversation with a native speaker, even if you know you'll stumble over your words. Ericsson emphasizes that real progress only happens when you operate at the edge of your current abilities, when you're trying to reach for something just a little beyond your grasp. That's when your brain and body are activated to adapt, to learn, to grow. Many of us tend to shy away from difficulties, from that feeling of discomfort. But you know what? That controlled feeling of discomfort is actually a sign that you are learning, that you are developing. Once you overcome the initial hurdle, you will grasp the key to deliberate practice. And as long as you can get into this rhythm of challenge, adapt, improve, you will undoubtedly be able to make real breakthroughs. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Do one thing every day that scares you." In the context of peak, that means always finding ways to push yourself slightly out of your safe zone during practice. In summary, the 4 essential conditions of deliberate practice are specific goals, intense focus, constant feedback, and stepping out of the comfort zone. They are like the 4 legs of a sturdy table, helping you build your excellence. If one leg is missing, that table might not be so steady anymore. So when you start a practice session, ask yourself, what is my goal today? Am I fully focused? How will I get feedback? And am I truly challenging myself? Answering these questions honestly will help you stay on the right path to conquering your own peak. Now that we have a clear understanding of the 4 pillars of deliberate practice, some of you might be wondering, can I really do this? Is my brain capable enough to change and learn such complex things, especially if I'm not young anymore? If you have these concerns, then this part of the video is for you. We're going to explore an incredibly wonderful truth about the human brain, its almost limitless ability to adapt. Many of us, when faced with a difficult skill or when we feel like we're not making any more progress, what people often call hitting a plateau, tend to think, well, I guess this is as far as I go. My abilities are limited. But did you know, according to the scientific research presented in Peak, most of these so-called plateaus or stagnations are actually psychological hurdles we create for ourselves, or they're due to us not practicing correctly. In reality, we often haven't even reached our true limits. It's just that we lack sufficient motivation, or we don't know how to push through. Science has discovered that the human brain's adaptability far exceeds what we commonly perceive. There's a classic study mentioned in the book, Research on Taxi Drivers in London, UK. Many of you probably know that London has one of the most complex street networks in the world. To become a licensed taxi driver in London, a black cab driver, candidates must pass an extremely rigorous test called the Knowledge. This test requires them to memorize thousands of streets, thousands of important landmarks, and be able to map out the shortest route between any 2 points in that maze-like city, all from memory, no GPS allowed. The process of learning the knowledge typically takes 2 to 4 years. What's fascinating is that neuroscientists scanned the brains of those learning the knowledge and compared them to the brains of a control group. They found that in the drivers who had passed the test, a key brain region involved in spatial memory, called the hippocampus, had grown significantly larger than before they started studying, and also larger than that of the control group. Do you see the miracle here? Their brains had actually changed structurally to meet the demands of learning. This study, along with many others on brain plasticity, neuroplasticity, has overturned the old notion that the adult brain is mostly fixed and unchangeable. In fact, our brains, regardless of age, retain an astonishing ability to adapt, learn, and reorganize. It's like a muscle. The more it's trained correctly, the stronger and more flexible it becomes. That's why world records in many fields are constantly being broken. It's not just because of better techniques or technology, but also because humans are increasingly understanding how to train their brains to reach new limits. It's not just our brains. Our bodies also have a powerful capacity for adaptation. However, the body tends to prefer stability, its current state of equilibrium, homeostasis. When you push it out of its comfort zone, for example, when you start a new exercise program or learn a difficult yoga pose, your body system feels pressure because its initial balance is threatened. That's why you might initially feel tired, sore, or unaccustomed. But if you persevere, your body will gradually respond to these changes. Muscle cells will rebuild stronger, your cardiovascular system will operate more efficiently, and your flexibility will increase. And once the body has begun to adapt to new challenges, a new state of balance at a higher level will gradually be established. Take exercise as a simple example. Initially, even jogging 1 kilometer might leave you breathless. But if you engage in persistent, deliberate practice, gradually increasing distance and speed, soon enough, 1 kilometer will become easy, then 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers. Your body has changed in various ways to adapt to this. And the greater the challenge, within safe and methodical limits, the more powerful the transformation and the improvement. The more you increase the difficulty of your exercises, the better results you'll reap in terms of health, endurance, or your physique. So what's the message here? It is never limit your own potential. The adaptability of our brains and bodies is immense, often far greater than the limits we set for ourselves. Therefore, we need to find enough faith and motivation to engage in deliberate practice, to dare to step out of our comfort zones, and to challenge and conquer ourselves every day. Each time you overcome a small limit, you're not just learning a new skill, you're also reinforcing your belief in your own capabilities. And that belief, just like your brain, will grow stronger with each challenge. We've talked a lot about the process of practice, about effort, about pushing limits. But an interesting question posed in Peak is, what truly differs inside the brain of an expert compared to a novice or an amateur? Why can a chess grandmaster glance at a chessboard and immediately recognize complex tactical situations, while we might stare indefinitely and understand nothing? Why can a skilled surgeon make precise decisions in split seconds during a tense operation? The answer, according to Anders Ericsson, lies in a critically important concept: mental representations. This might be a slightly abstract term, so I'll try to explain it as clearly as possible. Mental representations are structures of information, models, and patterns that we build and store in our brains about a specific field or skill. They're like detailed and complex mind maps that experts have developed through thousands of hours of deliberate practice. The main purpose of deliberate practice isn't just to perform an action mechanically. More importantly, it's to build and refine increasingly effective mental representations. Exceptional people, masters, and experts succeed because they possess mental representations that are far better, richer, and more accurate than those of ordinary individuals. And they constantly practice to optimize these mental representations. To visualize this, imagine you're learning to drive a car. Initially, everything was fragmented: the steering wheel, accelerator, brake, rear-view mirror, traffic laws, etc. You have to process each piece of information separately, which is very stressful and prone to errors. That's because you don't yet have a complete mental representation of driving. But after some practice, hopefully deliberate, your brain starts connecting these pieces of information. You begin to form a model of how the car operates, how its parts coordinate, and how traffic flows. You can anticipate the actions of other drivers. You can make quick and appropriate decisions. That's when your mental representation of driving has improved. Another example is that master chess players don't see the board as we do, as 32 individual pieces on 64 squares. Instead, they see structures, patterns, and chunks of pieces that have tactical meaning. They have thousands, even tens of thousands, of mental representations of different chess positions, offensive and defensive strategies. When they look at a board, their brains automatically cross-reference it with this vast internal library, quickly identifying the situation, predicting possible moves, and making optimal decisions. That's why they can play blindfold chess, playing without looking at the board so astonishingly well. They are playing with the mental representations in their heads. Similarly, a good doctor has complex mental representations of various diseases, symptoms, and treatment methods. When they see a patient, they don't just see a series of disconnected symptoms. They can quickly connect them, relate them to similar past cases which have been encoded as mental representations, and arrive at a more accurate diagnosis. So, how do mental representations help us? Firstly, deeper understanding. They help us organize information meaningfully, see the big picture, and the connections between details. Without them, learning new knowledge, especially specialized knowledge, would be very difficult, like reading a book you don't understand at all. That's because your brain lacks the foundational mental representations for that field. Secondly, planning and prediction. Experts use mental representations to visualize scenarios beforehand, predict the outcomes of different actions, and plan effectively. Thirdly, monitoring and evaluation. During skill execution, mental representations help them compare what's happening with the ideal model in their minds, allowing them to quickly detect errors and adjust. This is an extremely effective self-feedback mechanism. Fourthly, learning from experience. Every experience, whether a success or failure, is used to reinforce or adjust mental representations, making them increasingly sophisticated and useful. Bill Gates once said something very insightful. The biggest difference between people is the difference from the neck up. And that difference from the neck up, through the lens of peak, is precisely the quality and quantity of mental representations each person possesses and continually refines. However, there's a crucial point. Mental representations aren't always allies. If we don't constantly update and innovate, or if we practice incorrectly and form flawed mental representations, they themselves can become barriers, making us conservative, closed-minded, and resistant to new ideas. That's why many people can do a job for over a decade and still not become truly excellent. Because what's already in their brains, if not upgraded through deliberate practice, will turn back and hinder their development. This is where Steve Jobs' famous quote, "Stay hungry, stay foolish," becomes incredibly meaningful. Stay hungry, always crave new knowledge, always seek to improve your mental representations. Stay foolish, never think you know everything. Always maintain an open mind, ready to learn like a beginner. So how do we build effective mental representations? The answer circles back to deliberate practice and its 4 conditions. When you set specific goals, focus intensely, receive feedback, and step out of your comfort zone, you're not just training actions. You're actively building and strengthening powerful knowledge structures within your brain. That's how experts think and act. So far, we've explored many core concepts from peak, from debunking the myth of innate talent, discovering the power of deliberate practice and its 4 essential conditions, understanding the incredible flexibility of our brains, to realizing the importance of mental representations. Now, a more practical question arises. How do we apply these principles in our lives to gradually become more excellent? Anders Ericsson, through studying numerous successful individuals across various fields, found that their paths to excellence often follow a relatively similar set of stages. I'll share 4 main stages with you, which you can certainly use as a reference for your own development journey, or even for your children. Stage 1. Sparking interest and initial enjoyment. Every great journey begins with a small step, and in skill development, that first step is often interest and curiosity. For exceptional individuals, when they were children exploring the world, they were often inspired by parents, siblings, relatives, or someone else who introduced them to a particular field. Importantly, at this stage, practice often takes the form of play, a fun, pressure-free activity. The main goal is to awaken a natural love and fascination in the child. For instance, Mozart was introduced to music through games and joyful melodies from his father. Young athletes often start by simply playing with a ball, engaging in simple and enjoyable exercises. What about us, those who may have passed childhood? You can absolutely apply this to your own children. And for yourself, try to find or recreate that joy, that initial excitement for a skill or field you want to pursue. Remember, all lasting passions usually stem from things we genuinely enjoy doing, things that make us happy. Don't start with force. Start with curiosity and the joy of discovery. Stage 2. Getting serious and seeking guidance. Once you've found something that genuinely interests you, that initial enjoyment will gradually transform into a desire to learn and train more seriously. At this stage for children, the support and encouragement of parents, and especially the role of good teachers and dedicated coaches, are incredibly important. They provide foundational knowledge, correct techniques, and crucially, keep that flame of passion alive. For us adults, This is when you need to find a teacher, a mentor, or at least quality resources and courses for systematic guidance. As we discussed in the feedback section, a good teacher can help you progress faster and avoid unnecessary mistakes. And if you can't find a direct teacher, proactively seek other forms of feedback. Join communities, ask experienced individuals for input, record yourself for analysis. Seriousness here doesn't mean tension, but rather a commitment to yourself that you will invest time and effort to learn methodically. Stage 3, full commitment and intense dedication. This is the stage where the difference between an amateur and someone who truly wants to become an expert becomes evident. According to research, exceptional individuals often invest a tremendous amount of time and effort, especially during their teenage years or early adulthood. For example, ages 12 to 13 or 15 to 16, depending on the field. They often seek out top-tier teachers and coaches who can elevate their skills to a new level. At this stage, it's not just about their own wholehearted dedication. Sometimes, their families also have to invest significantly in terms of money, time, and emotional support. It's a comprehensive commitment. So, what about us? This stage doesn't necessarily have to occur at a specific age, but it marks a turning point when you decide, this is the field I want to conquer, and I am willing to dedicate my full focus, effort, and time to it. This is when you truly apply deliberate practice most profoundly, constantly pushing limits, seeking challenges, and relentlessly improving. Sacrificing other pleasures and persevering through difficulties and fatigue becomes inevitable. Stage 4. Innovating and giving back. After you've reached a very high level of proficiency in your field, becoming an expert, a master, the journey isn't over. Truly exceptional individuals don't just stop at mastering what already exists. They begin to constantly innovate, create, explore new approaches, and find breakthrough solutions. They don't just apply knowledge, they expand and develop it. This is akin to constantly cultivating and enriching newer, more sophisticated mental representations within ourselves. Furthermore, at this stage, many experts tend to share their knowledge and experience with the next generation, becoming teachers and mentors, thus continuing the cycle of development. They create legacies and valuable contributions to their communities and their fields. These 4 stages aren't a rigid formula, but they give us an overview of the developmental path of outstanding individuals. Regardless of which stage you're in, the important thing is to be aware of where you are, what you need to do next, and always keep alive the flame of learning and belief in your own abilities. And so, we've journeyed together through quite a bit to uncover the secrets from peak, Secrets from the New Science of Expertise by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole. From re-examining innate talent, exploring the extraordinary power of deliberate practice with its 4 key conditions, understanding the limitless adaptability of our brains, to recognizing the importance of mental representations and the 4-stage roadmap to cultivating excellence. I hope that what I've shared today, however much, has sparked a new belief in you, a powerful source of inspiration. The path to becoming better and outstanding in the field or skill you pursue isn't a distant dream, but is entirely within your reach if you have the right methods and a strong enough commitment. To encapsulate the very essence of this book, let me summarize with a few key takeaways you can carry with you. Firstly, ignite your passion. Find or nurture a genuine love for a job, a skill, or a capability. That will be your guiding star. Secondly, apply deliberate practice. Remember the 4 pillars: specific goals, intense focus, constant feedback, stepping out of the comfort zone. This is the compass for every effective practice session. Many readers on book forums also share that applying these 4 elements in practice has made a clear difference in their speed of improvement. Thirdly, build mental representations. Continuously learn, analyze, and synthesize to enrich and refine the thinking software within you. And as Steve Jobs said, stay hungry, stay foolish, always be eager and open. Fourthly, believe in adaptability. Don't let self-imposed limits hold you back. Your brain and body are capable of change and growth far beyond what you think. Finally, I wish all of us, the friends of Booksmart Insights, the strength to break free from stagnation on our chosen paths. I hope you'll discover what's most important and which core skill you want to invest in for deliberate practice so you can become more skilled, more confident, and contribute more value. Remember, as a saying I deeply appreciate goes, with the right choices, effort becomes meaningful. Thank you for listening and for joining Booksmart Insights in today's video. If you found these insights helpful and valuable, please don't hesitate to hit the like button to support me. Please share this video with friends and family who you think might also need this knowledge on their personal development journey. And most importantly, if you're not yet a member of the Booksmart Insights family, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right next to it so you don't miss out on insightful book analyses and valuable knowledge uploaded weekly. Before I say goodbye, I have a small question for you. After watching this video, what specific skill are you planning to first apply the principles of deliberate practice to improve in yourself? Please share your answer in the comments section below. I'm really looking forward to reading about your wonderful plans. Once again, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next videos from Booksmart Insights. Have a wonderfully energetic and joyful day.